What's up, Dose of Dion? What's up, Rad? Hey, my name is Michael Banks. Please vote for me every day at FordHallOfFans.com. Boot up.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with some Detroit Lions news. As recently, Brad Holmes had an interview with 97.3, and he gave some answers on the Lions' future, the Jared Goff situation, and he tapped a little bit in the Trinity Benson. I'm really glad they asked that question because Brad Holmes' answer really kind of opened my eyes a little bit because I'm like, oh snap, I didn't know that's how they felt about Trinity Benson, and it could affect his future going forward with the Detroit Lions. Also, we're going to be doing our preview for the quarterback position of this year's Senior Bowl. Lions have 3, Jets have 3. So we're only going through 6 today. I put a poll up in the community to see if you guys wanted to see me continue to do these positional groups by going through only specific players that I pick out. I'm like, yeah, we should really look at this guy because for whatever reason, scheme fit, I don't know, small school, whatever it may be, rather than going through every single player. So if you guys want to vote on that, it's in the community. Right now, I'm pretty sure the one that's leading is specific. Kind of assume that it would make the video much shorter. And I know, look, I know our videos get long. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get it started.
The city's been down and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome in, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here, and I love talking quarterbacks, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at 6 quarterbacks. Again, we're not going to go into extreme detail here. There probably will end up being draft profile videos on likely every quarterback that we talk about in today's video. Maybe some of them not, but I'm going to assume probably everybody we talk about today at some point before the draft has his own draft profile video. And many more, because there's guys outside of the Senior Bowl that could not only end up being high picks, but there's also some sleepers out there, some maybe guys that I think could fit the Lions if they wanted to go that direction. And plus, Brad Holmes talked about the Jared Goff situation, so I thought this just paired together. Unfortunately, YouTube has been doing me dirty recently, hit me with them copyrights. You know how they do, man. They be hitting me with them. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to try to adjust how I show some of my clips. I do like showing clips because I save them as I watch, and I'm like, oh snap, I like that. Or, you know, oh, that play is going to go with what I'm going to say. But YouTube be sitting there like, nope, can't do it. So I don't want to just show pictures. Pictures are boring, man. You guys want to see the live action. So we're going to try again. We're going to see how this goes. We'll see. That's all I can say. I can't promise anything with video clips for this video, but I'm going to try. I have a new theory, new idea. So we'll see how this one goes. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into this. So let's talk about the Senior Bowl real quick. The Detroit Lions coaches for this year's Senior Bowl, we know that guys like Dan Campbell will be playing more of an advisory role. So that means you're going to have an opportunity for positional coaches to step into bigger roles. So for this Senior Bowl, Deuce Staley is going to be the head coach for the Detroit Lions. He's going to be the acting head coach. Not a huge surprise there. It's kind of what Dan Campbell is preparing Deuce Staley for. It was a big reason why he chose to come here. So he's going to hold that down. I'm excited to see it. Offensive coordinator, interesting. It's Ben Johnson. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. Thought I'd just throw it out there. There is a chance Ben Johnson becomes their OC. We'll see. But for this Senior Bowl, he's going to be the offensive coordinator. So that will be something to keep an eye on. I don't know how that's going to work. Hey, they're going to be like, hey, go in the lab, write up some schemes, go beat that other team. Or is it going to be like, hey, do certain things so we can see certain things? I don't know how it's going to go, but I think it's a really cool opportunity. And Aubrey Pleasant, who is going to be the defensive coordinator, which we've talked about Aaron Glenn a lot because he's been getting interviews. I think he's had 2 interviews now. I know the Saints requested an interview since Sean Payton has retired. By the way, speaking of guys that have retired, Tom Brady retired today. What the heck is going on? It doesn't feel right. It really doesn't. You know what? I'm not even going to act like it happened. I'm just going to act like it didn't happen until I don't see him in the uniform next year, because who knows? Maybe he comes out of retirement. I just can't believe it, honestly. If you guys have seen the movie on Netflix where Kevin James is supposed to be Sean Payton, well, I watched that last night, and at the end of you know, I won't spoil anything, but the point is, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, this guy just retired. Was this planned? Like, hold up, this is just weird. It's just, Aaron Rodgers could be leaving the North. His offensive coordinator just went to Denver and got a job. We were talking about that in today's stream, which is a reason why some people think he'll go that direction. Their quarterback coach goes to Chicago. So it's just a lot of craziness going on. A lot of craziness could go down this offseason, and it's already begun, which I just don't know if I'm ready for it or not. I don't know. But anyways, I kind of got sidetracked there. I don't know where we're at. You know what? Let's talk about the North real quick. Just a couple of updates. So the Minnesota Vikings, they haven't hired their head coach as of this second, as of right now when I'm recording this. We know who their general manager is. Reported today that they had Patrick Graham in for an interview and that they requested to interview Jim Harbaugh. I hope they don't hire Jim Harbaugh. I would really not like to see that. First off, I want him to stay at Michigan. 2, I really don't want him within our division. You know, look, I'm a fan of the guy. So if he's going to come here, unfortunately, we're going to have to beat you. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Now, here's the thing. Here's what's important to this. This is why I bring this up, is because Jim Harbaugh, we know back with San Francisco, they kind of had, you know, the issue from leadership. It was kind of a power control issue they had going on there. The thing is, if you hire a guy like Jim Harbaugh as a first-time GM, he's going to want big say on everything. Like, he's going to come over and be the man, right? He's not going to just slide in here and I'm the head coach. He's going to be the guy. So that could lead to some ugliness. We'll see, though. I don't know if they're going to do it. It's just something to keep an eye on because there is that connection between their new general manager who was with him back at San Francisco. So just a quick update there. And then the Bears hired their assistant GM today, Ian Cunningham. So I thought I would throw that out. We know their new head coach now is Matt Eberflus from the Indianapolis Colts. They went with the defense coordinator that Bill Polian suggested. I just wanted to throw those out. Now let's get into what Brad Holmes said. They asked him about the Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff trade because now we see how far the Rams are in the playoffs. They're going to be playing in the NFC Championship tomorrow, maybe today, depending on when you're seeing this video. Hopefully I can get it out sooner than that, but we'll see. You know how we do. You know, I usually, last look at this. I'm not even lying. Yesterday's video, I think I got done 3 in the morning. I was like, yeah, I could probably upload this, but that would be terrible. I'm just going to push it to 11. And then YouTube, of course, like, no, you know, we're going to copyright you. And I don't even know about it. But anyways, that's beside the point. Whether or not Carolina was actually interested. And he said, look, there was multiple teams interested, but he didn't really go into detail beyond that. He said multiple teams were interested. Stanford handled it well. He said, I put it out there that I was a fan of the player, and I'm more of a fan of him after the way that he handled the situation. We got the picks that we got. You know, we have the 2 first-round picks. We got the third thrown in there. We have the picks that we have from the LA Rams. Now we have to go take advantage of those picks because they don't mean anything if you don't pick the right player. They also asked him about St. Brown and asked if there was any kind of similarities that he saw with Cooper Kupp. Now, what I took away from this answer that I want to share with you guys, because again, to me, this ties to the Senior Bowl, is he immediately went talking to the Senior Bowl and he said, the first time I saw Cooper Kupp was at the Senior Bowl. You can just tell when a guy's a football player. So having that ability, he said, now look, he keeps emphasizing this. When we get away from the Senior Bowl, we have to make sure we get away from the Senior Bowl. You know, we're not just, you know, have that emotional lock to these players because we got to coach them. I think this is a huge advantage. And he said, look, it's never acceptable to have 3 wins. It's never acceptable. We got to get better in a lot of areas. When they asked him, you know, what areas do you need to improve in? He said a lot of areas. When you have 3 wins, you got to get better in a lot of places. And he's not happy that they're in the situation that they're in, having the 2 pick, also being invited to the Senior Bowl. But like he said, we're going to take advantage of having that opportunity, and hopefully we're never back in this spot again. Remember with Bob Quinn, I think after the first year we had like a top 10 pick, and he's like, you know, I'm not used to being in this position. We don't want to be here again. And I'm pretty sure the next season we were in the same position. And then the next season, we were in the same position. So, yeah, you don't want to be back in this spot. That's dope, is that we're not back in this spot next year because he's right. 3 wins is not good enough. And he was saying this after the season. Did credit Sheila Ford Hamp for being very patient, believing their plan, and also the fan base. He credited us, okay? We appreciate it, Brad Holmes. He credited us for the patience that we have, understanding that this is a multi-year build. It's not a 1-year thing. This is interesting. We were kind of talking about this today when we were going through, when we were watching the basketball game, Michigan versus Michigan State. Again, shout out to everybody that was in here. You know, my guy Black Rose. I mean, everybody that was in there today. Got some new subscribers in there. How are y'all doing? That's the feel that's how the Lions are going to continue to do this thing. Like, they don't want to make this an all-in, go for it year 1, restructure contracts, make it rough for next year. They're not trying to be in a situation that the Packers are in right now. Now, the good situation with the Packers is that, yeah, they won a lot of games, but now they're in a rough spot because of where they are financially, how they've been setting up contracts for years. They don't want to be in that situation. And he said that since he's came in, it's a multi-year plan and that we're going to build through the draft. So I kind of anticipate that to be the same thing. That's not to say that free agency is going to be boring. He keeps saying it. You know, it's going to be more exciting this offseason. We're going to be much better. This is the player acquisition phase. The Lions aren't going to do that. They want this to be a stable, consistent thing, and they're trying to get it to that spot. The foundation has been laid. Now we're trying to build on top of that. So that's the exciting part. I mean, what do you put down after you put the foundation? You put a couch, okay? And then you put the TV, all right? And then you get the table so you can put your feet up. But hold up, now you need a roof. The biggest thing that he learned from this season was patience, being able to stick through it. And I think the part that immediately comes to mind when he says that comes about the bye week, when the Lions needed some help. Their tackles were struggling. Didn't know if Decker was going to come back. They were talking about possibly him being shut down for the season. We needed receiver help. And instead of making a move, they stayed patient. And luckily, it worked out for them. And it actually goes back to the draft as well. When he talked about they were considering trading up for Levi. Good thing we didn't do that. They still fell into our lap. And hopefully, you know, he improves next season. So we talked about being patient then. He's also talking about being patient during the season. He said, I learned to be patient and trust the multi-year build that we're going to do. Of course, Trinity Benson. I'm so glad he brought this up, and I'm so glad they asked him this question, because I think a lot of us, including me, have kind of looked at Trinity Benson and kind of written him off. You know, when Trinity Benson, we initially traded for him, I was pretty hyped about the guy. I loved his route running, watching him play in the preseason. He was dominant. He just really never got an opportunity in the regular season. So it was an opportunity with us for him that he was going to get in our receiver unit. Unfortunately, it kind of went downhill after we got Trinity Benson because of injuries and things like that, like Tyrell Williams, and then you had Quintez Cephas. Now, we didn't know all of this when we traded for Trinity Benson. It happened afterwards. And according to Brad Holmes, he said, we traded for Trinity Benson. And this could be, you could argue, well, it's just a cover up because he knows he messed up this pick. I mean, you can make that argument. If the half is the glass is half full, you can make that argument. Or if you take what Brad Holmes is saying, Brad Holmes said that they looked at Trinity Benson as not necessarily what he was going to bring to the table for 2021. If he was able to help us, great. But really what he was going to be for 2022. They looked at him as a developmental piece. They knew he was raw. He wasn't completely ready to go. He was a nice developmental piece. Remember, they ended up making that trade. They didn't give up a ton. They made a late round trade. It makes sense, too, not to give up on it quick, especially if you gave up picks for him. If you believed in him then, why give up on him right away? You don't need to. You can carry him through the offseason. At least let him go through camp, see what he can do, especially if that was your idea when you brought him in. Hey, he's going to be a player that we're going to develop. He's raw now, but we're going to develop him, and he's someone that we like down the road for 2022 with a year of development. We want him here, though. We don't want to miss out on this guy. We see what he can be. So why hurry to get rid of him? There's no rush to get rid of him. It's not like he's dropping a huge cap hit if you get rid of him. There's nothing like that. So you might as well keep him around, give him a shot, and see what he can do next offseason and the improvements that he makes. If he's not there, then he can move on if you have the depth that you need to have. But it's also guys like Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, both of those guys hitting free agency. Tom Kennedy, he's an exclusive rights free agent. So you have multiple guys that are coming up in free agency here. Lions, really nothing hurt by keeping him around and letting him compete through this offseason. So I'm excited for that. I think it's a very promising update for Trinity Benson, the way that he put it. Now, of course, they talked about Jared Goff, and this is where we're going to tie this together. We're going to talk about some quarterbacks in this year's Senior Bowl, and we're going to go through all 6 of them pretty quickly. I do have on doseofdn.com, if you guys remember, I've been taking notes there. I started to update that a little bit today. I'm kind of behind on it. I definitely got to update some more positional groups. But if you go to doseofdn.com, I do have a tab where I put in my strengths and weaknesses as I learn about these players on a page. It's nothing fancy. You know, I would like to make it a little bit fancier. I'm still kind of trying to make it better than last year and get a head start on it. But I list players by positional group, and then I go through and I list my strengths and weaknesses I took away. So if you're ever wondering what are my strengths or weaknesses for a guy, it just might be on that website, doseofdn.com. It's free. You just go on the website, 2022 NFL Draft Prospects. I think if you go to the tab that says Prospects, I think that's actually last year's. I didn't have complete last year's, but that was last year. So go to 2022. And he was asked about Jared Goff, and this was his answer. He said, like every player here, really like everybody on this team, we need him to continue to go out there and prove himself. We need him to continue to go out there and improve. We all made strides, not even just on the roster, as a staff. And we all need to improve. The coaching staff, you know, every department of this team needs to improve. But on the roster, Goff, like everybody else, needs to continue to go out there and prove himself. And I think that's absolutely the right answer. You know, he didn't go out there and say, well, hey, Goff's our guy. He's not going anywhere. But I don't think in this situation you should be saying that. It's not like he's been here for, 9 years. Still a young player. He was only 1 year here. Last year was very weird, really rough patches during the season. It was really made up of multiple different parts, and he did finish strong. But I think that's the right answer. You know, you got to go out there and prove yourself, especially when you're getting paid like that. You have to prove yourself. You know, you prove yourself every week. You update that resume every week in the National Football League. All right. It's not like, hey, this is what you were, so you're here. You update that every week. And he needs to continue to update that throughout the offseason going into next year. Now, the question then becomes, will the Lions draft a quarterback this year? I can't answer that. I don't know if the Lions are going to draft a quarterback this year. And I don't think anything that Brad Holmes told us, and he wasn't, going to give anything away, but I don't think based on anything Brad Holmes said, it made me feel one way or the other, like, oh yeah, he's definitely getting a quarterback, or not, he doesn't want one, they're not going to do that. I don't really know. But a couple of thoughts on it. First thing, if you're going to draft a quarterback this year, especially high, we're talking end of round 1, early round 2, probably in that range, maybe early round 3. But basically, if you're going to take a quarterback high this year, you're probably not going to do that next year. So if you're going to draft that quarterback, you better love who you're bringing in, and you better look at him as a guy that definitely you believe can be the future of this team. Because if I'm going to draft a quarterback with a high pick in this year's draft, I'm not going to come back next year and draft another quarterback. Also, I don't know if I could say that I believe any of the quarterbacks in this draft would instantly come in and be better than Jared Goff. I don't think I believe that based on what I've seen from these guys. Also, there's this side too. If the Lions are going to continue to build around a guy like Jared Goff, if they are going to draft a quarterback, it may not be a terrible idea to get a quarterback that you feel like could fit with what you're building Jared Goff around with. This is the run game, the O-line, and then it's certain types of weapons. Right now, the Lions have Hawk. We'll see if they re-sign him. So I don't think it'd be a terrible idea then, if you wanted to draft a quarterback, to get a quarterback that you feel like could fit in a similar system to that, not be something completely different. Because if I'm going to draft a quarterback this year, Goff's going to be the starter next year. So let's say by 2023, he gets the year to rest, which he gets the year to sit and watch and, take everything in, which I think is a benefit. Plus, if you do it at the end of the first round, you get the fifth-year option. This thing is there that I'm not putting a rookie in a position, which is a huge year for our staff. 2023 is good, could be the make or break year. Usually year 3 is that year, depending on how they do next season. That usually is the make or break year in Detroit. So for year 3, it'd be nicer not to have to throw a rookie into that spot and also have a quarterback that would thrive in the type of system that you kind of built for Jared Goff here, rather than a quarterback that fits completely different because you've already built that certain way for 2 seasons, which would be a good tight end like Hawkinson, a top offensive line, and a run game. You don't need the best receivers. You need guys that can make plays after the catch. And the Lions are building towards that, and I think that's going to continue. When you have those things around Goff, he's been successful his entire career. I mean, he really has, and he was this past year when we had those things around Goff. When we didn't early in the season, was successful. However, once we got those things around him in the second half of the year, he was very successful. Aside from the injury game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very successful, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So I look at a guy like a Carson Strong and I say, oh wow, I feel like he would fit perfectly. For Carson Strong, he's going to have those stuff with a run game, with a really nice tight end that can attack the middle of the field, and a really good offensive line. His mobility isn't necessarily there. It's the same things that I think a guy like Jared Goff needs to be successful. So with all this being said, you look at Goff's contract, we're not really sure where it's going to line up. It's going to keep resetting the market. If we learn one thing from this past year, it's that you have to be able to build a team around paying a quarterback to find consistent success. That's what I will say. You have to figure out first off who that quarterback is, but once you believe you know who that quarterback is, whether that's Goff or someone else, you have to be able to build a team around that while paying that contract to find consistent success. Because yeah, you may have that little window where they're on a rookie deal and you may find a really good season in there, but you're going to have to pay the guy at some point. So unless you're going to every 4 years draft a new quarterback, which is extremely unlikely because it's super hard to find a quarterback, then you're going to have to find a way to pay the guy. Goff, his contract's going to go from top of the league. It's going to keep working its way down. For 2022, it's currently 9th in the NFL. That could probably go down once we get into 2022 and guys are getting extensions. It'll probably drop even further down. It's going to keep resetting the market. Remember, Stafford at one point was the highest paid quarterback and he dropped way down. To build a team around paying a quarterback. And for a guy like Goff, who's still young, who I definitely believe can be the future of this team, I don't think you need to force it. But if you are going to draft a quarterback, if you are going to do it, get someone that you love because you're probably not going to go do it next year. A 7th round pick, 6th round, yeah, that's something different. But if you're taking an end of second round pick quarterback, like the Packers did with Jordan Love, you don't want to come back next season and draft another quarterback. Then it's just like we just wasted that pick and now he's a rookie coming in and wait, you're going to start the rookie? Like it doesn't make any sense. So if you're going to draft a quarterback this year, you better freaking love him and you better believe that he can be the future. And if Goff does not prove himself, then he can slide in. I think a lot of people, actually a majority of Lions fans, would prefer not drafting a quarterback this year, at least very high. And I understand that. For me personally, I don't look at it as Goff, no matter what, he's a bridge quarterback. I don't look at that. I don't look at it like that. I didn't look at it like that since he came in. And you guys know that's how I feel about Goff. I definitely feel like he can be the future. When I look at this offense, there's 2 main things that I think we need to add this offseason, and they both could come through the draft. After that, I think at that point, it's just more, bonuses they could throw to this offense. You can always get better. But the 2 main things I look at for this offense that we really need, if you ask me, is some help at the receiver position. Some of that can come through re-signings of a guy like Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. But I also would like to get kind of a stud at the receiver position. I like the big body receiver that can play the Z. That's what I'd be looking for. So another guy like that, of course, depth there. And then also a backup offensive tackle. Those are the 2 priorities I have offensively. After that, I can't really say that there's something that I'm like, I have to go get this. The one thing I'd be really focused on is figuring out the offensive coordinator spot. Is that going to be in-house? Is that going to be someone else? That's a big focus, is figuring out play calling because we need consistency there for sure. You don't want to have all these changes. That's not going to make it easy on any quarterback. We had way too many changes for offensive coordinators, things like that in the past, defense coordinators, and it just leads to a mess. I know the word around this quarterback class has been, it's not a good quarterback class, so you might as well wait for 2023. I agree that it's not a surefire number 1 or number 2 quarterback, but I'm also not going to be drafting a quarterback with my second pick in this year's draft anyway. Really, the same rules apply to the opposite side. It's not like I'm going to be pressing for a quarterback because Boyle and Blau are not under contract. I'll go get a backup. I'll resign one of those guys. I'll go get a UDFA. I'll get someone else to play the backup quarterback position. I mean, it's not like Lions are in a situation where we don't have a quarterback, and I do believe the Lions believe he can be the future. It's what Dan Campbell told us, the head coach of his team, and I truly believe that they believe that as well. But like they said, he's got to continue to go out there and prove himself. But you don't want to be in a desperation mode where you're jumping on quarterbacks just because you think you need to push them, something like that. We're not in a situation where we should even be thinking about something like that, jumping desperation to go grab a quarterback. We're not in a situation. There's teams around the league that don't have a quarterback, and they may get desperate, and they may do some crazy stuff. Usually it doesn't go well when you go crazy and you try to trade up and make some wild shake that you don't love just because you feel like you got to get a quarterback right now. Heck, some teams that need a quarterback, they'll end up just signing a vet and rolling forward with that guy until the next year's draft class if they don't love someone. So Lions are in no position where they should be pressing for a quarterback. That wouldn't make any sense. I'm fine with that with the quarterback position as well. There just has to be that guy that you love. And everybody, has certain guys. Maybe there's a guy in that class for you where like, dude, if we could just somehow find a way to get Bailey Zappy, I would lose it, man. I mean, I'd be so happy. Then if you were the GM, I wouldn't be mad at you for taking Bailey Zappy in this year's draft because you love the dude and you believe he can be a potential player for your team, no matter where you take him in the draft. I don't care what position you take the guy in the draft. Dak's a 4th-round pick. It really doesn't matter. It's hard enough to find a quarterback anyway. Just find a guy that you really like and invest in that. And if that guy's not in this class, don't worry about it then. Don't touch quarterback then. If he's not here, don't do it. We go out and we add help like I think we can. Like I said, offensive line depth and some more receiver help on the outside. Definitely think the Lions will be better than they were last season. I mean, the Lions to me will be much better than they were last season. So not going to be sitting at the top of the draft anyway to go get that number 1 quarterback. I don't believe we'll be in that situation. I don't think we should be in that situation. If you're in that situation and Goff is healthy next year, you messed up somewhere. Something went completely wrong because they already showed you this year that should not be the case next year. If Goff is healthy next year and you go through this offseason, you come back and you win 2 games, you did something massively wrong. You made some big mistakes somewhere. At that point, drafting a quarterback wouldn't fix your problem anyway because it's whatever the heck you put around the quarterback that became the issue. And that's what we learned this season. I'm watching Stafford go to the LA. He's getting paid, and they're in the NFC Championship game. And we couldn't win a playoff game with him. It's the same guy. Maybe coaching-wise different, maybe personnel different. The fact is they found a way to build around the guy while still taking on the cap hit. That's what we need to be able to figure out. Quarterback class is interesting to me because even though there isn't that surefire top quarterback anyway, I still think there's definitely talent within this group. Let's go through these 6 quarterbacks. Quick little background again, dosefdn.com if you guys want a little bit more of a detailed look, and I will continue to update this. I also have some other guys on here, some small school quarterbacks that I've been working on that I've been taking a look at. There probably will be videos on these guys at some point, but for now, let's just go through each one of these guys and just a small little breakdown of each of these guys. Let's start with the Jets first. Who are the Jets going to be coaching up at this year's Senior Bowl? So the first player we have is a quarterback out of Pitt. It's Kenny Pickett, who was in the Heisman race this season and then ended up going to quarterback Bryce Young out of Alabama. A 6'3", 222-pound quarterback out of Pitt. And statistically, he had some of the best numbers in college football for a quarterback. It wasn't the best because the guy actually with the best numbers is on this list. We'll get to him. And he, like a lot of quarterbacks in this class, do a lot of things out of the gun. He did a lot out of the empty formation offensively. But I do believe, and as of right now, if you had to say, hey, who's the number 1 quarterback? You got to pick somebody. Who do you think goes first in this year's draft? I'm going to say Kenny Pickett. So I don't think this guy would even fall to one of our picks reasonably anyway. I don't think he would unless you wanted to package and trade up. I mean, again, if you really loved a guy like that, I personally don't love Kenny Pickett like that from what I've seen so far, where I'd be willing to trade up picks to go grab this guy or go something crazy and take him at 2. I'm not on board like that. If I'm doing that, I need to look at him and say, yeah, this is a dude. There's literally no way we can pass. That's not the case for me with Kenny Pickett. This could definitely change. We'll see. Senior Bowl's going to have a big impact. As of right now, I think he ends up being the top quarterback in this class because he really just brings a lot to the table. He brings a little bit of everything, and he also brings good size at 6'3", 222. He's a good athlete. He is definitely a dual threat quarterback. You see the size. He's got a pretty nice arm, especially when he's escaping the pocket. The guy can throw some ropes. He's got a nice quick release. He can really open up the entire field because he can throw sideline to sideline. He can throw deep balls. One thing that sticks out with his arm strength is that he can throw passes late. So out of a break, they can sit down for a half second and he can put that ball on him late. He's a competitor. He runs hard. He's one of those guys that are going to fight for the extra yard. He's going to work his way quickly back from an injury. He's a fun quarterback quarterback to watch. I still have a couple of concerns about him. A lot of it comes from anticipation. Luckily for me, with Kenny Pickett, I was able to see a lot of all 22. One of my biggest concerns comes with anticipation. It's that lack of anticipation of where his guys are going to hit certain holes, specifically in zone coverage over the middle of the field, where those holes are going to be, where the coverage is going to open up, where it's going to be weak, where shots are going to be there before he actually sees it happen, before he sees the guy open. Now, you'll get the occasional pressures in his face. He'll let the ball go as a guy's doing his double move before he even breaks up field. Coverage, we'll see that from time to time. But it's his zone coverage, especially over the middle of the field. A little bit of hesitancy to fire the ball and anticipate that his guy's going to be where he needs to be in the whole of a zone. He's going to be open. He's going to make a play on the football. He's a little bit tentative in those situations. We see them go to rollouts that helps him. You get him on the move, you get him outside the pocket, you get some layers. He's got an arm to throw it all over the field, especially when plays break down. He's really fun to watch, but you just see some hesitancy there, and that does concern me, and he misses some plays that are there. One thing I don't like about Pickett is he kind of has a knack to leave a little bit too early, especially with shots over the middle of the field, behind zone coverage. He has a tendency to kind of look to escape a little bit too early, not hang on to it, not anticipate the pass, and try to lead a receiver before he sees it. We'll leave some shots out there on the field, and I think some of that comes with reading the coverage, and he kind of goes right to immediately an underneath pass, and he kind of gets stuck on that, and he leaves some shots that are out there where you can see with the all-22 that, yeah, the guy's running free. You can see based on the coverage that they're playing defensively, there's going to be a hole there, and he has the hole. They're just lacking some of that anticipation up the seams, behind the linebackers. Now, you will see anticipation if a safety drops down. Anytime a safety comes down, and this got him into trouble a couple times, but if a safety slid down, the ball would go over top. But Kenny Pickett really does, trait-wise, have all the traits that teams are looking for. Size, athleticism, pretty big arm, look comfortable in a couple situations. Of course, getting him outside the pocket, man coverage looked much more comfortable. Also, if it was zone underneath routes, anything in front of the linebackers, one thing that I do like is he will give his receivers a chance. Even when the play looks dead and it looks like, oh, he's going to throw it away, he'll just throw it in play. Defender's not paying attention. You got your back turned to this guy. That's an issue. A cornerback does not get his head turned around. You're going to have a problem because he likes to throw the back shoulder pass. He likes to give his guy an opportunity. So if you're a receiver with him, you got to be always aware. Now, he does have small hands. He has, I think, the smallest hands coming out of the draft, which some keep it out. He does wear gloves in every game. Not just bad weather. He wears gloves all the time because of his hands. Hey, he can't control how big his hands are, so he's got to adjust. Put some gloves on. I respect it. Figure it out. Make it work. He's still been able to throw with gloves on, so you got to figure out how you can do it. That spurts will hold the ball really long. We'll see that when there's pressure in his face, sometimes he'll fade back rather than stepping up in the pocket, and he'll look to scramble. He's really effective when scrambling to his right. He's scary as soon as he rolls out right. The amount of zip he can put on the ball, he does have speed. He looks extremely comfortable rolling that way. They'll do a lot of design rollouts to his right side out of the gun. That's where he can be extremely dangerous on the move because he can fire some ropes in there when he's on the move to his right. I do believe he'll end up being the top quarterback. I don't think he falls to any of our picks past our second pick, and I wouldn't trade up for this guy. He's the big name, I would say, coming into this. So he's the guy that's going to have a lot of attention, and the question is going to be, can he ball out? Can he ball out? Can he continue that? Can he do it in a Senior Bowl with a new offense? Probably some different things schematically, because you got to think for a lot of these guys, they've been within their offense, their system. One guy I'm super excited to see is Bailey Zappy, because he's been within the system for years, even going back to when he was playing in the FCS with Houston Baptist. But now he's got to come outside of that, and he has to find a way to be effective, possibly in a little bit of a different system for this game and this game alone. So that's going to be a very big challenge of how fast that these guys can pick that up, kind of adjust on the fly. Next quarterback that we have on the Jet side is Carson Strong, a 6'4", 215-pound quarterback out of Nevada. Now, Carson Strong, as of this point, I think he might be my favorite quarterback right now. He just might be my favorite quarterback. I like his size. He played in a very heavy spread offense, pistol offense, but really what he's good at is kind of what the lines are building towards. I'm going to be honest, he does give me some vibes of what Jared Goff is good at. Like some of the things that Jared Goff good at versus what he's not good at does kind of give me some vibes to a guy like Carson Strong. But Strong does bring a lot to the table. I love the way Carson Strong plays the game. I think he sees the defense better than most quarterbacks in this year's draft, maybe better than any quarterback in this draft. The anticipation, his timing, everything pre-snap that he's asked to do, the way he uses eyes to open up receivers downfield, to move safeties. Carson Strong brings a lot to the table that I really, really like. I mean, he's got a really nice arm. Some people say he has the best arm in the class. I don't know for sure on that, but he can make every single throw you could ask him, okay? He does have a bigger arm than Jared Goff does. He has a pretty big arm, and he does it with a pretty rapid release, with also some arm angles that he can mix in there. He shows some sidearm potential, but I'm a very big fan of Carson Strong. He really doesn't put the ball in harm's way very often, which is really impressive, because if you're thinking a guy like what I'm saying right now, and I'm saying, well, he's got some similarities to Goff, you're probably thinking, well, he just checks it down all the time. But no, that's not the case. Just like Goff, he'll push the ball down the field, but he's got a bigger arm than Goff. And at the same time, a lot of the offense was pushing the ball down the field. So to be extremely careful with the ball while also taking as many shots as he did really sticks out. He had a lot of big plays on his tape. He puts a lot of pressure on defensive backs. He draws a lot of pass interference calls with some of the ball placement that he can put out there. He does a great job playing off the safeties. You'll see a lot of times his keys are the safeties, reading what does the safety do. He can immediately pick up on the coverage. And the point is, if you have Carson Strong and you give him time in the pocket, he's going to find somewhere to go with the football, and he's usually going to get it to the right guy. Carson Strong, good accurate passer. Timing is great. Anticipation's there, and he can see the whole field. Everybody becomes active when he's the quarterback. That's the way that I would put it. He knows where his check zones are. He just has an extremely good feel within the offense, and what's impressive, he did this without really having much of a run game. They asked him to do protections at the line of scrimmage, so he was tasked with that. A couple things, though, with Carson Strong is he really doesn't have a lot of mobility. I'm not going to say he's not athletic. Compared to a lot of quarterbacks in his class, he's a below-average athlete. There's not that escapability, run around, make a guy miss when I'm under pressure, which can lead to some occasional forced passes because he can't always get out of the pocket. I don't think he's bad actually moving within the pocket. He just doesn't have that escapability once pressure hits the pocket. You know, he just doesn't have that. And a lot of guys bring that element, more of that dual threat. You're not going to have designed runs for Carson Strong. That's just not his game. But pretty big arm. Very good decision making. Carson Strong is one of my favorite quarterbacks, no question. He also does have a knee injury, which was popped up going way back, I think, end of high school. But according to a Senior Bowl director, it has zero long-term cause for concern, and he actually had that checked out by LA Ram doctors. So one of my favorite quarterbacks, no question about it, because for Strong, as smart as he is reading defense, he can take the deep shot. And he plays shotgun pistol, but I know he probably could play under center. I think there's enough mobility to roll out without question. He can throw a little bit on the move off platform. Rolls out right, pump fake, pull the corner down into cover two coverage, go right over top. Money. I'm pumped to see how this guy does. And the next guy that kind of gives me vibes of Carson Strong is Desmond Ritter on the Jets side, 6'4", 216. Good size. I mean, the height sticks out right away. He's got a little more of a slim build, but he's another dual threat quarterback. They have some keepers. He's light on his toes. He's got like 28 career rushing touchdowns, which really sticks out. Came back this past year, said there was unfinished business, and he took him to the college football playoff, which sticks out. What I like about him is a lot of, again, stuff he does pre-snap. You know, a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of stuff they do from the sideline. They'll fake the snap. They'll see where the defense moves. They'll look to the sideline, and they'll adjust the play for him. For Desmond Ritter, probably a lot of this has to do because he's been in this offense for so long. He has full control over everything at the line of scrimmage. He'll do protections. He'll put them in the right play. He's in control of checks. He's an extremely good leader from what we know. He is a guy that sets up meetings after practice to go and look at, you know, what they did after a game. He's also involved in game plan meetings at the beginning of the weeks with his team. He is a very smart quarterback, and he's put a lot on his plate at the college level, which makes me excited for that of his transition very quickly to the next level, that you could put a lot on this guy's plate and he could handle it. And he does show some nice things as a player as well. I like his footwork, especially when in a clean pocket, working through progressions. It's as smooth as it can be, keeps a good base when he doesn't have a lot of pressure. You'll see he does read the coverage a little bit. You'll see if he gets, you know, soft coverage on a cornerback on the outside and he's able to get some leverage, he'll go to a quick hitch. Same thing with Carson Strong, both these guys. I think Strong is better at this. I think he takes it to another level, but it gives me some vibes. Plus, he's a little bit more of a dual threat athlete they are getting here with Desmond Ritter. Competition shows up, number one. You got to keep that in mind, right? The competition you're playing against. Also, a lot of passes seem to get batted down at line of scrimmage. A lot of them were against Bama, though, too. So, you know, they're going to a lot of quick passes because the O-line was struggling to hold up. Some things I didn't love is ball placement is inaccurate, especially under pressure. It can really sail on him. Really, what shows up is his accuracy is just inconsistent as a whole. Carson is, to me, a much more accurate quarterback. It's why he's completing an adjusted 77% of his passes, which is just ridiculous. Ritter's not bad, but I wouldn't say he's an accurate quarterback. I would put him in like, yeah, he's an average accurate quarterback. Throw some dimes, but he's also kind of sporadic. You don't always know what you're going to get when he throws it. You know, he can have a great pass and come back and give you a not-so-good pass. He's just kind of sporadic, and even on easy passes where it sticks out, he'll have some passes in there where it's just slants way too high, throws away in front of him, doesn't give his guy a chance. He's got passes like that. Sometimes he doesn't always lead his players. Ball placement's questionable. It's gotten better, but it's not great. Notice with pressure, he does kind of have a tendency to sit and get stuck on his first read a little bit too long instead of notifying extremely quickly where my hot is and get the ball out of my hands. That's one thing that I've noticed is he doesn't always completely pick that up extremely fast. He kind of can get stuck a little bit on his initial route. But I love all the stuff that he does pre-snap. I think there's room for improvement, especially with his accuracy. He's a guy that I think it fit a lot of different offenses. I think he's a very smart player. To the Lions side, and I quickly want to throw this in here before we go to Lions quarterbacks. This is what Dan Campbell said. coming into last year before the draft. Now, we didn't draft a quarterback because we had Jared Goff. This is what he said about the type of quarterback that he looks for. That's something cool we'll take a look at the end of this video. But this is what he said. He said, I kind of view the intangibles of a quarterback more than I do arm strength, like arm talent. You can't be a weak arm guy. Yep, you can't. You got to be able to make NFL throws. And there's a couple guys in this draft that I don't know if can. But he says, but I'd rather have a guy that is an accurate passer. He makes smart decisions. Certainly would like him to be a little bit more of a mobile quarterback, okay? A little more of a mobile quarterback, because in today's game, it's hard when you are a guy that can't move around the pocket. That's kind of my vision for a quarterback. I thought I would throw that out just to keep an eye on. I mean, hey, I look for a lot of those things as well, too. I'll take all those things. A little bit of mobility, a little bit of escapability, but the main two things that he brought up first would be the first top two things on my list. First off, I look at trying to be able to read a defense, but he talks about smart decisions. You know, putting the ball right place, not having turnover-worthy plays. This type of offense, you throw the ball into coverage, we are going to be in trouble. It's going to turn into a disaster fast. You can't do that in this kind of offense. That's going to be long drives, run the football. You cannot do that and have success. Doesn't need to have the biggest arm, though. So I don't need a guy that's just like, hey, on Madden, he's awesome because he's got a big arm and he's fast. No, he's got to make smart decisions, take care of the football. And I think a big part of that is also being able to run the show offensively, protections, things like that. So now let's move on to the Lions side. These are the quarterbacks they're going to be coaching. They'll have an eye on both of them, but these are quarterbacks they're going to coach. First off, we have quarterback Bailey Zappy, okay? Now, Bailey Zappy is the guy that set pretty much every record this year. The guy went crazy in the air raid scheme that he ran with Western Kentucky. A 6'1", 220-pound quarterback. Now, with Bailey Zappy, he has this connection to this air raid offense for years. Okay, going back to when he was at Houston Baptist for 3 years. He was coached by offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach now for Western Kentucky, Kitley, and he went to Western Kentucky with him. So that air raid offense stuck with Bailey Zappy throughout his entire college career, and I think this past year you really saw, probably with better talent as well, he just had full control of this offense and what he was asked to do. He had 62 touchdown passes, nearly 6,000 yards, and he completed almost 70% of his passes. Those stats don't even seem realistic, but they're real. I'm telling you. And there was really no games that he wasn't good. Like, not good, but not productive. Michigan State, productive. Indiana, productive. And every game they put up points. Every game they put up at least like 30 points. So they were scoring. Their offense was dominant. I don't think you'll see an offense exactly like this in the NFL, but he picked it up, and he was executing at such a high level. Kind of reminds me of Matt Corral. Different offense, but he executed it at a high level. First thing that sticks out is toughness. There was a game he had an ankle sprain. He had 500 yards and 5 touchdowns coming out. He was in a boot that week in practice. Came out and had 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's just the kind of numbers he was putting up during the entire season. Now, with him, he's not a bad athlete. I would say he's a solid athlete. You do see some occasional design runs in there, some options. It's not like Malik Willis or even a Desmond Ritter, but he's got a little bit of athleticism, and he has some ability to run. He's got a nice little build. A lot of work on the sidelines. Now, when you watch this offense, a lot of vertical routes is that air raid attack. They do a lot of work towards the sidelines. You'll get a lot of, 3-by-1 sets, 3 receivers on one side, trip sets. You'll get a lot of 3 verticals from one side. You'll get a lot of wide receiver screens. You'll get fake wide receiver screens, trying to get over the top, trying to, move the safeties, split the safeties down the field. A lot of shots coming within this offense, which led to ridiculous production. So it was a very big part of the offense that he was in. But again, he took it to another level. And he looked so comfortable in this offense. Finding his reads, knowing where to go with the football, just so much control over this offense. Some ability to step up in the pocket, throw some rifles when he's able to step into a pass. He can extend some plays outside of the pocket, so he has a little bit of athleticism, like I've said. But he was just high-level timing. I mean, he just knew where guys were going to be before they were there. His understanding of this offense after years of working within it was at a high level, and I think that's why we saw such the breakout that we did and so many of the crazy numbers that we did. And he also was asked to do protections before the snap, which is very important. I mean, they started putting a lot on his plate as he went through, especially at Western Kentucky. He had to handle protection. I have some questions. His arm isn't huge. It doesn't pop off like some other guys. He also does have some underthrown passes that you will see, especially when he's trying to put a ball on a line, 20 plus yards down the field. Passes can get underthrown, they'll get dirted. So he's better at that point at trying to, put a little air under some of those passes. So there's some slight limitations. He did throw some dangerous passes. Some were picked, some were not intercepted. Really kind of anticipating big time where a guy was going to be. You saw some passes that were very dangerous, could have been picked off. Some were picked off into coverage, not necessarily always seeing the defense, sometimes just throwing it to where the route is going to go. I'm still kind of early in the Bailey Zappy watching film, but yeah, I mean, the numbers can't be overlooked. So he automatically is going to get attention for that. He is one of the maybe the most excited I am to see a quarterback in this Senior Bowl, just because of what he did and the competition he's now going to have to face, and also in a different offense. A lot of guys I'm excited to see because of that reason. I would love to see Matt Corral in this offense. That would have had me pumped, but we don't. Matt Corral's offense, which was RPO so heavy, I would have loved to see how he would be able to translate. They're not going to run RPO all the time. This guy, though, in this offense was dominant. I'm pumped to see him. I'm going to have to dive more into this, and I'm sure at some point we'll have a video specifically on him. The next quarterback that we have is Sam Howell. Now, Sam Howell, there will be a video on him soon. I might actually go on Patreon. Me and Rad did a video on Sam Howell. He was the first real guy, because actually Rad brought me onto him, that I was like, whoa, I kind of really like this dude. Sam Howell's got a lot of things to like, but there's a couple of things that do concern me big time. A couple things that I do like. First off, he's an underrated runner. He's got a big body, kind of short. It reminds you a little bit of Baker just in his build and his throwing motion. He's kind of a bulky build, and he's an underrated runner. He gives me some Josh Allen vibes. Like, he can take things to the house. He can take off and go. He can run through some defenders. You see a lot of designed runs. I would like to see him protect himself a little more. He takes a lot of punishment, but he can definitely run. That's for sure. You got the arm angles in there. I mean, this is the leader that you want. This is the kind of guy that gives you that Baker feel of a fiery guy that's going to show tons of leadership, and he's going to, he's going to fight for your team. That's kind of the vibe you get from a guy like Sam Howell. That's the feel I get from him. He did manage some RPO offensively, and he was a very snappy player. He's got a baseball background, so you kind of see it just coming off the snap, picking up the snap, and getting into his throwing motion. His throwing motion is slowed down a little bit because he does have a tendency to pat the ball. Also, when working through his progressions, he's extremely bouncy, and he can throw off his base and platform, and passes do tend to get a little inaccurate. Really nice reactions to blitzers. What do I mean by that? Not necessarily pre-snap. I think he needs to work on his awareness on where the pressure is actually coming from. That way he can be proactive and feel it and make a decision. Sometimes he'll just run right into linemen, not necessarily knowing where pressure is coming from, and his immediate look is, I'm going to go run straight. And he runs right into linemen. He does a good job at keeping his eyes downfield when he tries to take off, looking for a shot, looking to still push something. However, he could be a little bit more better with his awareness, but once it's there, he does a nice job of avoiding a pass rusher, a blitzer, being reactionary on the fly. His footwork, I think a lot of his lower body mechanics need work. I also think you're going to see him fading back on some passes. Passes can sail on him a little bit. The biggest red flag I have for him right now is that he just does not give up on plays. That's my biggest red flag, is that there's some plays he just does not give up on. Now, fourth down, no issues with it. Throw it up, whatever. The game's over. But when you're throwing passes up in the air, instead of taking a sack or taking an incomplete, and people are going to be mad because you didn't try something, but I would way rather you do that than throw the ball into the air and have it picked off. That is a killer, and that can't be the case. You can't do things like that. You are going to kill our offense. You have to take your loss, cut your losses, and move forward. And that's my biggest red flag with him heading into this. So curious to see how he does, hopefully with some pressure. Hopefully all these guys get pressured in this game just to see how they respond to it. But what I liked about Howell really originally stuck out was the way that he would react to coverage. He had a feel for where coverage was going to be. You hit him with cover 3 consistently, he would move the ball. He could keep every player alive. He could scramble out, make some throws on the run. And at the same time, he had a feel on where holes were and how to attack coverage and where the ball needs to go based on what I'm seeing post-snap. Very reactionary to coverage. So I think his IQ of the game is very high. He just has to give up on some plays earlier. And that brings us to the final quarterback, which is Malik Willis, who plays for Liberty. He's been getting the hype because, he's the highlight guy. Malik Willis highlights. He will have the best highlight tape of any of these guys. Small school, Liberty, competition's questionable, but same thing with Carson Strong too. But he's fun to watch. Big arm, rocket arm, extremely fast. He gives me Lamar vibes when he takes off. He's that kind of scary. He's elusive, nice with the ball in his hands. I don't think he breaks a lot of tackles, but he's freaky when the ball gets in his hand, especially when he gets off space. He's got good top end speed. They run design runs. He can keep bodies alive. He can keep plays alive. He's got really nice body control with the ball in his hands, and he seems to protect it well. When he's outside the pocket, he has a rocket. He can throw that thing on a rope. There's certain throws that I've seen him make where I'm just like, how do you do that? That shouldn't happen. There's no way you should be able to make that throw. You're late. The coverage is where it's supposed to be. Why is that happening? Some of that's competition, so I'm really excited to see how that translates versus better competition in this year's Senior Bowl if he tries to take some of those shots. Hopefully he does. Because he's the type of player to me that needs to sometimes dial it back. Now, I do think it's easier to dial it back than say, hey, can we actually throw the ball deep one time? I think it's easier to do that. Way more often than not, has a tendency of getting a little greedy, I guess you call it, and looking for the big play all the time. And instead of taking necessarily what is given to him, where the check down is, and just taking a couple extra yards. He'll take dumb, unnecessary sacks, take his team out of field goal range because he just holds onto the football looking for a shot down the field. He also has to make his 60s as accurate. I think for him, he has a big arm, right? So he's got to learn to tame that a little bit, understand the situation, where the route is, and how much velocity should I put on this pass. He will throw some rockets that just fly over people's heads within 5 yards. It's like, why is he throwing it like that? He also can make some questionable decisions, stressing his arm too much. I've seen him throw passes extremely late. Sometimes you get a pass that drops in the bucket. You're like, how did he do that? And then other times you get a pass that's just picked off. It's like, why would you throw it there that late in the play? You can't come across your body that late. That's the rule. You can't do that. So he's got a lot of that to me. And that's why everybody says, well, his upside is so high. Because it is. I mean, he's an athlete. You can't teach the kind of athlete with arm strength that he has. It's just that, to me right now, he's definitely got a lot of room to grow mentally, taking the passes that are there. The accuracy is going to need some improvement. He's nowhere near a finished product. If you're going to draft Malik Willis, you can't have him come in and say, hey, you're going to be our starter next year. Like, nah, I don't think you want to do that. You're going to have a lot of rough games. Rookies are going to have rough games in general. You don't want that. This is, without a doubt, a guy that you want to say, hey, let's sit for a year, at least a year. Try to work on some of this mechanics. Let's work on, a lot of this accuracy, things like that. Let's take the reads that are there. Let's get you involved with this offense. Let's understand it. Let's also do things that work to your strengths. All right, but let's play within ourselves a little bit. And then let him take off the top in some certain places. Look, he's an enticing prospect. Not my favorite. Personally, he's not my cup of tea as of now. If you're like, hey, who do you want to draft? Malik Willis is not my top. He's a fan favorite. I have no issues with it, like Tua came out, was not a fan favorite for me. I did not like Tua. Was not a very big fan of Tua. Wasn't a huge fan of Trey Lance coming out. It's okay. I get it. Everybody's got people they like, certain people they don't like. That's how Bill Parcells looks at quarterbacks. Bill Parcells' rule for looking at quarterbacks, and we know that Campbell and all these guys on his staff take a lot from Parcells. So he's going to use this as well. I think Dan Campbell even brought it up one time. When Parcells would evaluate quarterbacks, and apparently he said he was super high on Brady, he had a first-round grade on him. I don't know. But he said, here's what I look for. Here's the 7 things that they have to do. They have to check these boxes or he's off my board to limit down prospects. Here's the 7 things he had. Quarterback, 3-year starter. He needs to be a senior. He needs to be a college graduate. He needs to have started 30 games. He needs to have won 23 games. He needs to have a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio and complete at least 60% of his passes. When you look at these players, who checks those boxes? Kenny Pickett checks that box. He would fill out all 7 for 7. Matt Corral's not on here, but he'd be 3 for 7. Desmond Ritter, he checks all boxes. Sam Howell, he checks 5 of the 7 boxes. Look at Carson Strong, he checks 6 of the 7 boxes. Some of this is kind of skewed because in 2020 they all had COVID. They had the COVID game schedule, so a lot of games are cut short. Like for Strong, he had games cut short. If he just had a couple more games, he probably would have checked every box. Willis, 5 of the 7 boxes. So I'm not saying they're going to use that, but if they did, it'd be like, what? If they did, those are the things that apparently Parcells would look at. So I don't know. If that's the case, we'd be looking at Ritter, Pickett, maybe Strong if they're able to overlook the fact that, yeah, he didn't have enough games with Nevada to get it because of 2020 and how messed up it was. But those are the guys that apparently check the most boxes. I don't know. Anyway, that's just a little overview. We're going to talk about these guys individually when we go through. I'm excited to see them all. Really, I am. Really want to see Strong because I think he's a beast. I think Strong is an absolute monster. Ritter has impressed me recently. Bailey Zappy, I want to see how he does within a different offense. I wish we could see Matt Corral in a different offense. I would have loved to see that. But really, every guy here I'm excited. Malik Willis, he's going to be the story of it. He's going to be the headline, and he'll probably make some crazy good plays. Kenny Pickett, he's the number 1 coming in. I think he's a lot of people's number 1. I'm not necessarily saying he's my number 1, but he would be who I project to be number 1 quarterback off the board. So we'll see what happens. The exciting thing is really everybody in this in this thing has the potential to be the first quarterback taken, maybe aside from Bailey Zappy. But who knows? He's got the better numbers of everybody, so why can't he go out there and dominate and say, hey, I'm the best quarterback here? In our thoughts, comments below, who you going to be looking for in this one? We are going to be back. Probably go through the other positional groups, likely with just specific players and not every player, because it seems like that's probably what you guys are going to go for. We will be doing draft profile videos. I'm working on editing Sam Howell videos, so for your Patreon members, stay locked. We got a Sam Howell video that I got to get out there. That may drop on YouTube. I know I have one for Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher, that we also record. I got to get that one edited and put probably on Patreon. So stay locked for those. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.